Be strong.
Well, there's an old adage that you don't train for a marathon the night before you do it. Well, unfortunately, at Trike's Performance, Sean and Damo want you to do as they say rather than they do, as they completed a 21-kilometre half marathon with little to no training. And in today's podcast episode, firstly, we're going to talk about the important cause that was the reason behind their half marathon effort, and then going through their experiences on how to improve their performance going forward. So, first off, it's a massive welcome to you, Sean. Welcome to the back to the Trike's Performance podcast.
Hey, g'day, Rob. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for jumping on. I know it's been a pretty stressful last 48 hours for you. How are you feeling?
A bit sore. Things are hurting that haven't hurt before. So it's been, as you said, a very interesting 48 to 72 hours. But glad to have got it done.
Beautiful, mate. We'll talk about the specific information behind your run shortly. And of course, we've got the head honcho, the man who's wearing a Miami Heat basketball top, which is absolutely outstanding, on the back of his award-winning YouTube performance in NBA Boomers videos. And it's welcome to you, Damo.
How you going, Rob? The Heat hit me up after our video went viral and sent me some free kits. So anyone out there, if you want me to be an ambassador, I'll happily wear your clothes in the podcast.
Brilliant, mate. And you also completed the 21 kilometres on the weekend. How have you pulled up?
Sunday, very poorly. Yesterday, slightly better. And today I did manage to get out for a walk this morning just to kick the legs over. A few of the local grannies in queue overtook me pretty easily, but I'm back to walking around quite normally, which is good.
Well, mate, I'm glad that you've made it. I'm glad you've both made it to the podcast today. So I appreciate both the efforts. I know it's been Herculean to get to this point. So well done. But I will provide a little bit more context now. And so what's happened and the scope of this video and podcast, if you're listening today, is that Sean and Damo both completed a 21-kilometre half marathon on the weekend around Albert Park. And look, it was for a really good cause, and we'll touch on that in due course. But we really wanted to use this video as an example of what can go wrong if you try and attempt half marathons or marathons without any training, and then some basic and guiding principles that you should undertake before you do any sort of long-distance event, continuous running, or anything in terms of aerobic capacity. So that's the scope of this video today. But I think it's important that we talk about why Damo and Sean ran the 21 kilometres, and it wasn't just on a whim. It was for an important cause. And Sean, you're probably closest to it than compared to Damo and I. So do you want to maybe talk about why you boys ran such long distance on the weekend and the rationale behind it?
Yes. So Chris Ross, who was our high performance manager down at Frankston, he was unfortunately and very sadly diagnosed with MND earlier in the year. So I guess, what was it, probably 2 weeks ago, Josh Newman, our captain, and Josh Webster, who's one of our staff members, football analyst down at the club, they organised a run for Rossy. So just encouraging people to get out and run or ride, really, as far as they saw fit, and try to raise some money for Rossy to help him out a bit, and so he can try and live his best life after being diagnosed. So it was really, really, really cool and really awesome to see the way that everyone got around it. The whole club got around it, and eventually, you see everyone else get involved. Like the two of you got involved with me, and never met Rossy, but jumped on board without a blink of an eye, and we were able to raise, or collectively, I think it was over $110,000 in the space of 2 weeks, which was phenomenal. So yeah, it was really good day, really good weekend, just seeing everyone get out and about and go on a run.
Mate, first of all, it's a credit to you because you won't say it, but you raised a fair bit of money individually yourself. I think it was about $1,500. So, well done to you too for putting your hand up and first putting you through a bit of emotional, a lot of physical pain to do so. So, well done to you. And then also bring Damo into this. It's also well done to Damo because initially Damo and I decided to run 10-kilometer legs each with you just to help you along. And Damo started the race with you and then finished it entirely as well. So, mate, well done to you, Damo, as well for going the whole way with him.
Yeah, look, it was a good idea at the time, the pain afterwards. But, yeah, like you said, it's for a great cause. And I guess the sports science, strength and conditioning community is quite small. I've not met Rossy before, but sort of Josh Webster, one of the co-organisers, is one of my good friends from uni outside of you guys as well. So sort of knowing people close to the situation, it was an easy decision to get involved and chip in a bit of cash, but also do the hard yards out there. Obviously, it's for a fantastic cause and a little bit of pain can easily be worn away after a couple of days. So it was worth it.
No, it absolutely was. So what we want to talk about now, I guess, and thanks for sharing it. And if you do want to still donate, I believe you can still donate, Sean, is that right?
Yep. Yeah, there's an Instagram page, Run for Rossy, and you'll find all the relevant links to donate. There's also links on our Triax Instagram page as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and we'll leave the details in the description and show notes as well, so people can definitely get that check that out, and we encourage people to do so. So, but now we want to, I guess, maybe talk us through, boys, the feelings running the 21K. Maybe give us a bit of a recap of how you're feeling in different segments, and then we might kick off the discussion from there. So, how you felt at the start when it was all laughing and smiling, and have a look at me, I'm just going to run around Albert Park, to maybe when you hit the wall a little bit. So let's just start from there, and we'll work the discussion from there.
Yeah, I guess for context, the track we ran around Albert Park was 5Ks or just over 5Ks. Yep. So the first lap, I think we were doing pretty good, weren't we, Damo? We're having a little chat every now and then as we're running around, as you do. And then, towards the back end of the second lap, probably sort of that 8K, 9K mark, I was starting to feel it, which I guess for context, I don't think I've ever run more than 10Ks in my life, and certainly not recently. So we had a little pit stop at about 10Ks, because that's when Rob, you were jumping on board. And then from there, I think looking back at my times, I hit the wall at about the 14K mark. That's where I really started to slow down, and my hips were very sore. And then from there, I did have to stop a few times periodically after that, because it was getting pretty tough. But thankfully was able to run the whole thing, not continuously though, which was disappointing, and that'll be a goal of mine going forward, to do it all in one go. But it was just really good to get it done. And I knew going in it was going to be pretty tough, but probably underestimated just how tough.
And then Damo, so maybe talk us through how you went on the similar run, because mate, you looked really good finishing the race, and you finished it pretty strongly. So how did you feel in comparison to Sean, do you think?
So Shawnee said the first 10K sort of wasn't too bad. It was all laughs and giggles to start off with, a fair bit of chat along the way, trying to drop a few jokes. I could see that Shawnee around that 8K mark was starting to feel it a little bit, so I was trying to brighten the mood a little bit. But similar to Sean, I haven't done more than 10K ever. I've done 10K a couple of times, but never really gone further than that. And when I'd done it in the past, it was sort of around that 8K mark that it started to hurt a fair bit, and you got to get over that hurdle. But got through the first 10K all right, and then we had that little pit stop and the changeover, and that hurt a little bit, just getting the rhythm back afterwards. But I sort of did jump out in front of you two a little bit just because that was the pace that felt comfortable. And then around the 14K mark, similar to what Sean said, I reckon the hips really started to feel it. And knowing that we had a full lap to go after that sort of was a bit of a mental hurdle to get over. It was quite difficult. And then, I think we stopped a couple more times for Shawnee, and I think it was about the 18K mark. I should have yelled it out to you, but I was in my head, I just had to finish the run. I couldn't stop anymore. And I think just that little bit slower pace was actually hurting me more. Just the changed running gait was hurting my hip a lot. So I sort of strode it out. It ended up, like you said, Rob, we'd ran most of the 20 odd K at about sort of 5:20 to 5:30, and I ran it the last couple of Ks at 5 or below minute kilometers. But that was just what felt comfortable at the time. Just I think that little bit faster running gait was a bit more comfortable and didn't have as much strain on my hips. So pushed through. I felt all right at the end, but certainly not having any training. It was definitely the legs, not the lungs, that were cooked by the end of it.
All right, so Damo and Sean both said something interesting about hitting the wall, and Damo said about stopping as well. And once you stop, it's very hard to then start again, isn't it? So that's the problem. It's not necessarily trudging along. It's if you stop, have a drink break or whatever, and then go again. Isn't it? That was a massive mental barrier, wasn't it?
I actually spoke to Webby, who did the marathon, and he had to stop at 35, and he actually got a massage from one of the blokes riding the bike behind him for about 5 minutes. And after that, he said that 5-minute break, just all the lactic acid and the fatigue started to build up in his quads, and his legs just got a whole lot heavier, and he had still another sort of 7Ks to go. And he said that was torture. He said if he did it again, he would have just pushed through. So I think it just is, because when you stop, the blood flows, reduces a little bit, and there's a bit more fatigue that just stays in your legs, and they just get heavier and heavier each time you stop.
Well, and so Sean, it could, because then you noted just then before, during the race, Sean, that you stopped a couple of times. You stopped. Did you think that made it easier for you to finish, or do you think that starting again was harder each time?
I don't know, because I don't think I could have finished if I didn't stop a couple of times.
Yeah,
because it was just like the repetitive motion in my hips was just hurting, and when I was able to stop for a minute, it sort of went away for a bit, and then obviously it came back once I started running. But I was able to sort of keep going. But I don't know. It was just from that sort of 14K mark onwards, that was probably the hardest portion of it. I think that I think as Damo sort of alluded to, the mental battle that you're going through in your own head is just as big as sort of what you're feeling in your legs and that sort of thing. But I guess I had you behind me, Rob, yelling in my ear every 50 meters, which helped. But I think I had, looking back, I don't know the answer if I had to kept going, but I think that stopping for me helped.
Yeah. It's and that's that's an interesting point, I guess. That what can converse that with what Damo said about Webby, who stopped after running the 35K and was basically hindered his performance going forward. But what point in the race did both of you think it was going to become a mental barrier to you to finish? So people roll up and think 21 Ks, it looks okay on paper. 21, 20 seems like it's a nice number. And people would think that, just roll out of bed and do it. What point did you guys realise that this was harder than what you expected?
I guess the week before I'd done, I guess I don't do continuous running very often.
Yeah.
Or long distance running very often. So I did 8Ks the week before, like 7 days before, and that felt pretty good. I actually felt like I could keep going. But then...
So, sorry to interrupt, but so how much time were you running then for that 8Ks, and what was your pace?
Varied between sort of 5 to 5 minutes 20 per kilometre.
Yeah.
And that's what we were around.
Yep.
Weren't we, Damo? It was around that sort of
Yeah.
mark. So,
Yep.
and then as I was approaching that 8K mark in the half marathon, it felt a lot harder than that 8Ks that I'd done previously. And that's when I knew that probably wasn't going to be as easy as day as I thought. Not that I thought it was going to be easy, but just like it was going to be a bit more of a struggle. And even looking back at the heart rate data on my watch, which isn't always super accurate, as you know, but I looked at the 8K run from the week before and the half marathon, and even just the percentages of, the time spent in each zone. And for the half marathon, pretty much the whole thing was spent in that highest zone, whereas the 8K run beforehand was sort of that zone, a mix of that zone 3, zone 4, and not much of the higher zone. So, I guess looking back, it makes sense.
And Damo, what was that point for you? Did you reach that point of that mental realization that, oh shit, I haven't done enough training for this, or I don't know how I'm going to get through this? Like, at what point did those thoughts, if they came, at what point did they come?
Oh, at the start one, I knew that I was in for a tough day. But no, I was very surprised. As I said, like, I've been trying to run regularly each week, but it's not like the volume of that sort of level. But I try to run like there's a 4K circuit I sort of run around my place that I try to do in sort of 4 minute 10 kilometers. So dropping back, I think, like, conditioning wise, in terms of like heart rate and stuff like that, I didn't really leave zone 2 or 3. So I was definitely not cooked in terms of the lungs or like physiologically, but it was the physical barrier. And I having done it before, and I knew that my hip would get sore at some point. It was at that 14K mark. Then I was like, oh crap, this is like, it's another third to go, feeling like that. And it progressively got worse. And I think it was at that 18K mark when I sort of just left you two behind, was like that was when the mental barrier kicked over. That was when I had to make the decision. I think if I keep going at this pace and along like this, there's a good chance that I won't actually finish it, because the pain was getting pretty bad. Then I sort of just made that decision. All right, I'll go for it. I'll try to run a bit quicker. If I run out of steam, I run out of steam, and I'll just crawl over the line. But hopefully I can get there feeling a little bit better. And it did. It sort of opened up the hip a little bit more and didn't hurt as much, and made it more comfortable. But I think, that 18K mark was when it really kicked in for me, that it was a mental battle more than a physical one.
Yeah, beautiful. So just briefly, what was your finishing time? So, Damo, how long did it take you to finish?
Hour 55.
Hour 55, and Sean?
Hour 59.
Right. Okay. So you both basically run 2 hours worth of running off little training in one hit. So it's obviously a massive spike in your overall volume. So obviously you had repercussions of that during the event, but what about after it? So what did you do after you ran, I guess, to recover and to, I guess, hopefully try and mitigate any pain that you did have? So maybe talk about what happened post-race and some of your strategies there.
Yeah, so I got home and I jumped straight in the bath. Wasn't an ice bath, or no? It wasn't an ice bath. I just needed to chill out, I think, and I just thought that a bath would help. And other than that, I was pretty much just resting. Had some food, not straight away, maybe a couple of hours after we would have finished. And that was just a burger. So, getting those salts back in and that sort of thing. And other than that, I guess in the immediate aftermath, I didn't really do much. I had a makeshift ice pack on my left hip, but that was about it. On the Gatorade. The Gatorade afterwards, I grabbed another one afterwards. So, that was about it for me.
What about you, Damo?
Yeah, I, much to Rob's distaste, I went with the missus. We went to the South Melbourne market, and I actually got a thick shake, probably about half an hour afterwards. But I don't know about you, Sean, but my appetite wasn't really there. Like, I knew that I needed to have something, but I wasn't like hungry. So I went the fluids over a solid feed. So the old vanilla thick shake, which was good. Bit of protein in there as well from the milk. And then after that, I had a muesli bar probably another hour after that, and another Powerade. And then I actually did a bit of work for a bit there. I had a few assignments I had to mark, which was probably not the greatest thing to have to do. And then laid on the couch for a bit, and then went around to Hayley's, and I sort of said I need somewhere to lay down. So she set up the air mattress, and I literally just laid there with an ice pack on my hip, taking it on and off every 20 minutes. And we had a few hot chips, and then ordered a pizza later on. So it wasn't a great diet, but I think it was just what I needed, and probably had 5 bottles of water afterwards as well. So I was chugging that down. Don't have access to a bath. I would have had probably a Radox bath or something like that, but I don't have one. So had a couple of, like, a hot shower and a cold shower and the icing, and then popped a couple of Panadols before bed, actually. My mum, I messaged my mum. She's actually run 1 half marathon every month for the last 12 months. And so she had a few tips. She had a few tips for me on how to go about it. So she said, yeah, take a couple of Panadol before you go to bed, so that when you roll over and stuff on your hips, you don't feel too bad. So yeah, woke up in the morning pretty stiff, but not having to do anything really. I sat on my ass all day Monday. And then I think this is part of your second part of the question. I did a bit of a stretching and a foam rolling session last night and felt fantastic after that. And since then I've been pretty good.
Brilliant. So that's leading to sort of the crux of this conversation then, I guess, is that you boys have experienced the pain during and after. And I guess you boys have realised how severe the demands are, both when you're running and then on your body after. So I guess the direction we want to go is, well, how can we do this better next time? And how can we actually prepare you adequately for something like this again? And judging from you blokes, I think you've got a few tips that you'd probably like to give people. So I think we should table or start the discussion here before we wrap up as to how you could actually do this better next time.
Yeah, certainly don't do it off no preparation. That's probably tip number one. I guess you need the training volume behind you, because 21 kilometers is, for most people, going to be around that 2-hour mark, potentially a bit quicker, potentially a bit slower. And unless you've exercised or run for 2 hours in one go, the body is probably not prepared for that. So I think you need to, as we've spoken about before, you can't just go from 0 to 100. You need to slowly build up. And I think that's probably going to take, in my opinion, and in an ideal world, you'd probably take longer, but I think you need a minimum of like 8 weeks.
Yep.
To build up. I think you could do it in 8 weeks, but certainly not in the week and a half that myself and Damo had. But I think, yeah, if you can slowly build up just the amount of Ks you run per week, and then within your session as well, that'll just have your body a bit better prepared for what's to come.
Yeah, I think having a little bit of an existing base, doing some sort of like at least 1 or 2, 4 or 5K runs a week certainly helped, because my weekly volume sort of around half the amount that you got to do. But yes, I think you would need to do at least, like, build your volume up, as Sean said. I think if you've got an existing base, you could probably do it in like a month to 6 weeks. You just need to build up to, I reckon you need to run at least 15 Ks as your longest warm-up run or like preparation run, just so that your body's accustomed with running that distance. I think, tripling my weekly running load in one session certainly wasn't helpful. So if you can build up, slowly progress that and get the volume there, I think you'd be fine. If you're starting from scratch, as Shawnee said, you probably need about that 8 weeks. If you've got something in the tank, a bit more of a shorter time frame could be used just to build up to that longer distance.
Yeah, another sort of strategy I used, because I knew that I didn't want to have to run too much in the lead up. I had my last running session 7 days before the half marathon, was just jumping on the bike for an hour at a time, because I knew that running time was going to be around 2 hours, but I didn't want to cook myself either. But I think even just getting, the heart and the lungs used to having to work for such a prolonged duration, that can help as well. And then you obviously don't have the running loads through the joints if you're just on a bike or something like that. But that's something that you can use to supplement your running as well. It's not going to make up for it, obviously, because you're not having those loads go through your body, but it's just another tool you can use as well.
Yeah, I think one people probably don't think about as well is like your running gear or equipment. Make sure that you've got good shoes, right shorts. Like you can end up with some bad chafe. Not that it happened to me, but I know that a lot of people that run those longer distance, if you haven't got the right pair of jocks on or shorts, it can be pretty painful. And it's the same with shoes. So I know you had a pretty bad blister, didn't you, Shawnee?
Yeah, I did. It was about the size of a 10-cent coin, I reckon. So,
no,
just on the side of the foot, just underneath my big toe. So, but it's all right. It doesn't hurt or anything. It was just, just big.
All right. So to finish off, boys, I want to talk about briefly, I guess, how to plan one of these programs and what you should look at going forward. Because like last year, we did a couple of podcast episodes about aerobic training and building a base and all that sort of stuff for team sport athletes probably. So, AFL, soccer, rugby codes, everything along those lines. But what about for a continuous runner? So you blokes obviously had a bit of a baptism of fire with running one of those events. So how, I guess, should you go about planning a program, and what are the main components you need going forward to run basically anything from half marathon upwards? Because I think you blokes have proven that you'd probably get away with doing 10K. Obviously, you don't recommend that, but what about for anybody above 21 kilometers?
I think the obvious one's volume, which everyone's going to probably program into their training for that. So you've got to do some form of long continuous running. If you
volume is, so you're talking about volume is the amount of Ks done per week. That's what volume it means.
Yeah. So, and you, like I said, if you want to do the half, you'd want to be doing sort of like 10K runs regularly and then pushing up into that sort of 15-kilometer territory in your preparation. I think the one that people would probably not think of though, so everyone, if you're just Joe Blow following, Couch to 5K or 10K or whatever, the app would be that you would be doing those long continuous runs and progressively building up. But if you want to do better at one of those events, you'd also need to do some interval based stuff so that you can sort of train your body to run at those higher intensities and adapt to that. And then when you go a bit slower, you're obviously performing a bit more optimally. I would be looking at sort of probably have 1 to 2 longish runs per week, and then depending on how many times you're training per week, and then one session per week where you're looking at some shorter, faster stuff, whether it be starting off with some fartlek running or some short intervals, that sort of stuff. That's how I would break down training for it, so that I'm getting my volume in, but then I'm also getting some intensity so that I'm improving my speed per kilometer. I reckon, Shawnee, if you and I had our time again and we had like that 6 to 8 week block, we could quite easily drop that running time that we've got. So around that sort of 1:55 to 2 hours, I think we could get closer to sort of, running sub 5-minute kilometers pretty comfortably.
Yeah, because I think the thing that we spoke about beforehand was trying not to go too hard out of the blocks too early. And I think we were pretty comfortable sitting around that just above that 5-minute mark. And if we were to hold that for 20Ks, we'd be looking at, an hour 40 maybe, which is cutting 20 minutes off is quite a lot. So I think that to get that and breaking your sessions up into sort of smaller chunks, as Damo said with the intervals, you can still do a similar distance that you would for your long distance run. Like say you do a 10, 12 kilometer run, you could just break that up into sort of longer intervals and do, 2-3 kilometers at a time and try and do that a little bit harder, and then break that up with like an easy run in between. Like you might do 2Ks hard or 1K easy, for example, until you get to 12 kilometers. So, and use that little 1 kilometer easy effort as like your little active recovery type thing, and sort of building that intensity from there. But I think the main one, if you're just trying to get it done, the main one is going to be the volume and the Ks in the legs.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. Is there any, so if we're talking, if you want to do like a basic sort of prescription, you're looking at running 3 to 4 times a week, it's probably where you want to be. As Sean and Dano said, you want a mix of that long, continuous volume-based work and then some faster stuff as well. That's probably most effective. Where does strength training fit into that, do you think? Is that still something you need to do, some regular strength-based work?
Yeah, I think if you're coming from nothing, I would suggest that you work on like muscular endurance type training. So a high number of reps, lower volumes, and build that capacity for your muscles to have those repeated efforts. You could transition into the strength type training as well, but I think that would be the most valuable for you, because I think that's where sort of it probably happened to us, was that just endurance in the muscles, and because we didn't have the Ks in the legs, we're not used to it. So if you could sort of complement your weight training, so focusing on your lower body exercises predominantly, so step up, squats, deadlifts, some lateral movements as well. I think that certainly we had a few hip problems. I think strengthening up around the hips and the glutes would be super important as well. But certainly my prescription would be looking at that more endurance-based prescription of training. So that sort of 12, 15 plus reps with lower weights, just to build that muscular endurance.
Yeah, and strength training, it plays a role. I think there's a lot of research that's shown that it improves your running economy, which is essentially just your efficiency and your sort of with each step, how much energy you're using, more or less. So it does play a big role there, and it certainly helps. And it's certainly something that, resistance training is recommended for all runners, no matter how far you run. It's definitely not something you should ignore.
Yeah, that's very good. And I think to finish off with, what about any sort of plyometrics or jumping based stuff? Is that a bridge too far, or is there room for that too?
No, I think like just Shawnee touched on there, like running economy and your gait and everything, it's very dependent on, especially like we talk about elasticity in the ankle joint when it comes to running, and jumping is going to help with that in terms of building the tendon stiffness and elasticity that's important for running. So one of the best ways to train that is plyometrics. So again, you just got to be smart with your dosage of that, because if you're getting high volumes through the tendons and joints already, loading up with plyometrics as well. So just making sure that your dosages of that are correct and fits in with your running schedule, but certainly something that you would program as well.
Yeah, I think running itself is almost a plyometric as well. So you're going to get a little bit of that just through running, but doing some plyometric type exercises away from that is always going to be of benefit as well. But as Damo mentioned, you don't want to overdo it, because that's when you start to have those sort of overuse injuries in the tendons, and particularly the Achilles. It's a big one with runners.
Yeah, I think that's very important to come back to, is that if you're starting from scratch listening to this and you're you're doing maybe like one gym session a week or none, and you haven't done any running, you need to be very smart about how you're going to implement that. So, going from 0 running sessions to 3 in a week's a big jump. Then if you're going to add on 2 strength sessions as well, you need to be very careful of how you're loading that or how you're implementing that. So it might be a slow transition. And that's where that sort of 8 to 12 weeks to implement something like that's quite useful, because you can slowly phase in and build up your workload. Not to say that you couldn't do 5 sessions in your first week, but you would be looking at doing very light loads in your strength training. If you think you can do 20 squats with 20 kilos comfortably, drop it down to 10 kilos and look after your body and slowly build up that ability to lift that load. And then in terms of running as well, if you can do 5Ks running, just drop it back down, maybe do that, but do, as Shawnee said, you might do 2 2K runs and a 1K run to get your volume there, and just slowly build up.
Sounds pretty good, boys. Sounds like it's decent advice. So I think we might wrap it up there. That you've covered everything, and it sounds like you boys need some sort of ice bath to get you through the rest of the week. So well done. Congratulations on completing it, and congrats on doing something worthwhile and a great cause that you contributed to. So well done to both of you.
Yeah, just a nice shout out to Rob as well, who ran the furthest he's ever run on the day as well. So good stuff to you, Rob. Chipping in with 10Ks is good effort.
Thanks, mate. I appreciate it.
You're well on the way to that marathon that you promised us at the start of the year.
Yes, exactly. A quarter of the way there. So, yeah, that'll come in good time. No doubts about that. But, yeah, well done to you boys. You guys did exceptionally well. So there will be some content posted around some of the boys' exploits on the day, and some interesting photos of Sean curled up on the side of the road as well. So we'll be interested to distribute those on various forums. But well done to you, Sean, anyway. It was a great cause, so congratulations.
Thanks, boys. It was good to have you both there kicking me along. So thank you both.
Brilliant. All right, well, that's all we've got time for on this edition of the Triax Performance Podcast. Thanks to Damo and Sean. If you want to donate again to the run for Rossy, the links are in the description and show notes and all that sort of stuff as well. So that's a great cause that you can still get behind if you choose to. So thanks very much, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.